Non-binary or genderqueer is an umbrella term for gender identities that are neither male nor female. Identities that are outside the gender binary. Non-binary identities fall under the transgender umbrella. Since non-binary people typically identify with a gender that is different from their assigned sex. Though some non-binary individuals do not consider themselves transgender, non-binary people may identify as an intermediate or separate third gender, identify with more than one gender, no gender, or have a fluctuating gender identity. Gender identity is separate from sexual or romantic orientation, and non-binary people have a variety of sexual orientations, just as cisgender people do. Being non-binary is also not the same as being intersex. Most intersex people identify as either male or female. Non-binary people as a group vary in their gender expressions, and some may reject gender identities altogether. Some non-binary people are medically treated for gender dysphoria with surgery or hormones, as trans men and trans women often are. The term genderqueer originated in queer zines of the 1980s as a precursor to the term non-binary. It gained wider use in the 1990s among political activists, especially Ricky Annie Wichens. Wichens used the term in a 1995 essay published in the first issue of In Your Face to describe anyone who is gender non-conforming and identified as genderqueer in their 1997 autobiography. Wichens was also one of the main contributors to the anthology Genderqueer: Voices Beyond the Sexual Binary, published in 2002. The internet allowed the term genderqueer to spread even further than zines, and by the 2010s the term was introduced to the mainstream via celebrities who publicly identified under the genderqueer umbrella. Genderqueer is often used to self-identify by people who challenge binary social constructions of gender, in addition to being an umbrella term for non-binary gender identities. Genderqueer has been used as an adjective to refer to any people who are perceived to transcend or divert from traditional distinctions of gender, regardless of their gender identity. Individuals may express gender non-normatively by not conforming into the binary gender categories of man and woman. The term genderqueer has also been applied by those describing what they see as gender ambiguity. Androgynous is frequently used as a descriptive term for people in this category. This is because the term androgyny is closely associated with a blend of socially defined masculine and feminine traits. However, not all genderqueer people identify as androgynous. Some genderqueer people identify as a masculine woman or a feminine man or combine genderqueer with another gender option. Being non-binary is not the same as being intersex, and most intersex people identify as either male or female. Some people use NB as a short form of non-binary. Many references use the term transgender to include genderqueer, non-binary people. This use of the word as a broad term for various kinds of gender variation dates to at least 1992, and the publication of Transgender Liberation, a movement whose time has come by Leslie Feinberg. In 1994, non-binary author Kate Bornstein wrote that all the categories of transgender find a common ground, in that they each break one or more of the rules of gender. What we have in common is that we are gender outlaws. Every one of us. The Human Rights Campaign Foundation and Gender Spectrum use the term gender expansive to convey a wider, more flexible range of gender identity and or expression than typically associated with the binary gender system. Agender people, also called genderless, gender-free, non-gendered, or ungendered, are those who identify as having no gender or being without a gender identity. Although this category includes a broad range of identities which do not conform to traditional gender norms, scholar Finn Enke states that people who identify with any of these positions may not necessarily self-identify as transgender. Agender people have no specific set of pronouns. Singular they is typically used, but it is not the default. Neutrois and agender were two of 50 available custom genders on Facebook, which were added on the 13th of February 2014. Agender is also available as a gender option on Occupy since the 17th of November 2014. Bigender people have two gender identities in behaviors. Identifying as bigender is typically understood to mean that one identifies as both male and female, or moves between masculine gender expression and feminine gender expression, having two distinct gender identities simultaneously or fluctuating between them. This is different from identifying as genderfluid, as those who identify as genderfluid may not go back and forth between any fixed gender identities, and may experience an entire range or spectrum of identities over time. The American Psychological Association describes the bigender identity as part of the umbrella of transg.